Hi, my name is Tom and welcome to On a Student Budget. Today, this is going to be a comparison video between the Havi B3 Pro 1 that's on my left here, which retails for about $60 to $70 on pendantaudio.com and lendmeyourears.com, and the Hifiman RE400 on my right here, which originally retailed for about $99, but you can purchase them for about $79 off of Amazon at the moment. So in this comparison, we're going to be going over the build quality, comfort, isolation, and sound quality. So without further ado, let's dive right in. In terms of build quality, I definitely would say the Havis would take this section by quite a large margin, and that's because of quite a number of reasons, and I'll get into my first one. The first thing I want to talk about is I've been following both of the threads of both of these earphones on HeadFi, and I've noticed that the RE400s in particular had quite a number of complaints in regards to the build quality, as in the right channel or left channel gets shorts out, the cable is not glued properly on the earpieces, so the cable kind of slips out and you have to use super glue to kind of stick it back on again. So and then the cable, the 45-degree angle jack is not well relieved, it kind of just broke out and stuff like that. So there's been a lot of complaints in regards to the build quality of the RE400s, which makes me kind of ding the design, the build quality section for this earphone. Whereas the Havi B3 Pro 1, I haven't really heard too many issues come out on the thread in regards to the build quality of these earphones. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about is the actual earphones themselves and my personal experience with them. Now, I've had both of these earphones for quite a while now. The Havis, I had them since last November, I think, or October, something like that. And I've had these Hifiman RE400s for about a year and a half now, almost 2 years, and I've been totally babying these earphones based on a lot of users' feedback in regards to the build quality. Mine are still up and running right now, but I've definitely taken care of these earphones very, very well, and I've definitely been very careful with them. So the Havis have the earpieces are made out of entirely plastic compared to the aluminum earpieces on the RE400s. But I think the cables here are definitely better managed, better well relieved, especially at the Y-shaped split here. It's well relieved, and the bottom half of the cable is this flat, resistant towards tangling kind of cable, and it terminates in low profile 90-degree angle jack, whereas the RE400s have this kind of fabric cable, which is prone to kinking, as you can see here, and then I'm not really a big fan of that, and the cable here is not really well relieved. It's just really this hard plastic edge. So in terms of build quality, the Havis take this category. Now for the comfort section of this comparison video, I think that the Hifiman RE400s are quite a bit more comfortable than the Havi B3 Pro 1s. However, that's not to say that the Havis are uncomfortable in any sort of manner, but just in this comparison, I would pick the RE400s over the Havis every time, and that's because for a number of reasons. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the actual footprint or the housing of the earphones. So as you can see, the Havis are substantially smaller in terms of its size, and the earpieces are more rounded off, so none of the edges are ever in contact with my ear at any time. Whereas the Havis, I'm going to get this confused throughout this comparison, the Havis have a much bigger footprint, and the earpieces have this irregular kind of shape. And in particularly, this edge here for my right ear caused a little bit of a sore spot at about the 2-hour mark. So that's just something to note, but for the most part, this earphone is fairly comfortable in general. In terms of isolation, I definitely think the Havis take this category. Now, both of these earphones are dynamic driver earphones, and they are ported. The Hifiman RE400 has a port right here, if the camera can focus. Yeah, right there. And the Havis has a vent over here. The camera can again focus right here, and I think that these both of them, I think you can use them for busing and commuting as well, but I think the Havis do a better job of isolating noise more than the RE400s. Now going into the meat and potatoes of this comparison video, which is the sound. Now both of these earphones have more of a flatter kind of or balanced kind of sound signature, as in there's no boosted bass, mid-range, or treble. Everything's a little bit more even keeled throughout. However, there are notable differences between these two earphones, and I think these differences will allow them to cater more towards their audience a little bit better. Now, starting from the bass, I think that in terms of bass, the Havi B3 Pro 1s have a more of a better extension in the bass, reaching the sub bass a little better, and I think that the Havis have a quicker, kind of more nimble kind of bass, so it avoids any sort of congestion on electronic tracks and dubstep. So I think that this is a little bit more of an exciting kind of bass, whereas the RE400s have more of a smoother, a fuller kind of bass, and punchier as well. So I think that in the grand scheme of things, both of these earphones are going to disappoint bass heads in terms of the quantity, and this is, I think, more going to satisfy audio purists or audiophiles in general. In terms of the bass, it's a little more flatter throughout. Now going into the mid-range, both of these earphones have more of a drier, kind of a leaner kind of mid-range. I do feel that the Havi's mid-range is not flat in particular. I think that there is a gradual dip, and there's a little dip in the middle, which causes a little bit more emphasis in the male and female vocals, and I think that it projects female vocals a little bit more forward than the RE400s, and I think that the Havis are slightly more detailed in terms of the mid-range than the RE400s. It presents those micro details a little bit better in terms of how vocalists enunciate certain words and their tonality of their voices as well. However, as a result, I think that the Havis here are slightly more cold sounding compared to the RE400s, which has more warmer kind of vocals. The vocals here are, I think, presents male and female vocals more evenly, and I think a little bit more naturally throughout, as in none is more forward than the other as well. And I think that these earphones are a little bit, as I said before, smoother overall. So I think if you're listening to tracks with female vocals that are a little bit that can sound a little strident or a little bit peaky, the RE400s will kind of mitigate that a little bit and smooth it off, so it's a little bit more easygoing sound. Now, in terms of treble, I think that the Havis have a good extension in the treble. There's a little bit more of an edge to the treble, which makes everything sound a little bit more exciting and a little bit more lively as well. And I think that the Havis complement pop and electronic genres better than the RE400s. However, that said, in comparison to the RE400s, on some tracks it can sound a little bit brash, whereas the RE400s are very smooth sounding. The treble is more easygoing. It's a little bit of a darker kind of treble. It's a little bit of a rolled off treble, so it makes these earphones the perfect earphone for long listening sessions. And I think that both of these earphones have great clarity in the treble, but I think that the RE400s are just slightly more refined in the treble in terms of the detailing, even though it is slightly more rolled off. Now, going into the soundstage, the Havis definitely take this category by quite a landslide, actually. The Havis are definitely much bigger in terms of its presentation, in terms of left and right presentation. Its separation is really good as well, and placement of instrument within that soundstage is very good. The RE400s are no slouch in this category. It's just presentation is much smaller throughout. Its separation and placement is good as well, but just the Havis are just more of an immersive kind of experience, which I think is really kind of killer for this price range at $60 to $70. So in conclusion, taking into account of all the categories mentioned previously, I think that the Havis are more easily recommended because these earphones are cheaper. For one, it's better built. There's less build quality issues on the Havis in comparison to the RE400s in general, and I think that these isolate slightly better as well. Sound signature wise, I think it's really up to preference. I prefer the sound signature on the RE400 slightly more, but the Havis are just very unique in terms of the actual sound signature, because it's a weird take on, or it's a really good weird take on neutral kind of sound signature, as in the bass is faster, and the mid-range is a little bit more forward in terms of the vocals, the treble is slightly crisper overall, so, and the soundstage is bigger as well. So this is just a very unique listen, and I wholeheartedly recommend the Havi B3 Pro 1. So I hope you enjoyed this comparison video. If it helps you guys out, definitely hit the like and subscribe button, and definitely if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and follow me on facebook.com/onastudentbudget or on Twitter at twitter.com/onstudentbudget. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.